The Universal Door of Guan Yin Bodhisattva. Chapter 25. Guan Yin Bodhisattva, who contemplates the cries of the world, also has the same capacity as Bodhisattva Wondrous Voice to appear in all manner of forms suited to rescuing living beings according to their aptitude and needs. That is why this Bodhisattva has a name that means the Bodhisattva who contemplates the world's sounds. Endowed with such effortless spiritual powers, Guan Yin Bodhisattva travels throughout the worlds, teaching living beings and taking them across the sea of suffering to the far shore of liberation. The universal door of the chapter's title refers to the many methods that Guan Yin Bodhisattva employs in order to help and liberate living beings. Just as there are many kinds of living beings, there are also many kinds of methods used to help them. This chapter describes the 7 difficulties that Guan Yin Bodhisattva is able to resolve, the 3 poisons she is able to eradicate, and the 2 wishes she vows to fulfill. By virtue of her past practices and vows, Guan Yin Bodhisattva responds to all beings without discrimination. Through her spiritual powers, the Bodhisattva responds to all those who call on her assistance by reciting her name. Every supplication receives a response. No entreaty is left unanswered. At that time, Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, placed his palms together, faced the Buddha, and said, "World-honored one, for what reason is Guan Yin Bodhisattva called Bodhisattva who contemplates the world's sounds?" The Buddha answered Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve, "Good man, if countless billions of kotis of living beings tormented by misery and pain hear of Guan Yin Bodhisattva and single-mindedly call out her name, Guan Yin Bodhisattva will immediately respond to their cries and set them free. If living beings upholding the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva fall into a great fire, the fire will not burn them, all because of this Bodhisattva's splendid spiritual powers. If living beings, carried away by deep waters, call out her name for help, they will be delivered to shallow water. Suppose billions of kotis of living beings take to the sea in search of treasures such as gold, silver, viduria, giant clamshell, carnelian, coral, amber, and pearls, and they run afoul of violent squalls that blow their boat off course and set it adrift in the lands of the Rakshasas. If among them there is even one person who calls out the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, they will all escape the dangers of the Rakshasas. For this reason, she is called Bodhisattva who contemplates the world's sounds. Or if there is someone who is about to be harmed in some way, and that person calls out the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, the knives and clubs of the assailants will simply break into pieces, and the person will escape the danger. If the trichiliocosm is teeming with yakshas and rakshasas bent on causing people harm, but these malevolent ghosts hear people calling out the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, they will not even be able to glare at those people, much less harm them. If a person, whether guilty or innocent, who has been bound in stocks or shackled in chains, calls the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, the fetters will snap and fall away, and the person will immediately be freed. Suppose that the trichiliocosm is teeming with vicious bandits, and a caravan leader is guiding his caravan laden with precious goods over a dangerous road. Suppose one man among the caravan says, "Good men, do not be afraid. With all your hearts invoke the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva." This Bodhisattva can bestow fearlessness upon living beings. If we beseech this Bodhisattva, we shall surely escape these vicious bandits. Upon hearing this exhortation, if all the merchants cry out in unison, "Homage to Bodhisattva who contemplates the world sounds," they will be free from danger because of their invocation. Infinite resolve, how magnificent are the splendid spiritual powers of Guan Yin Bodhisattva Mahasattva. If beings overwhelmed with sexual desire constantly and reverently hold Guan Yin Bodhisattva in their hearts, their passion will subside. If beings beset by much anger constantly and reverently hold Guan Yin Bodhisattva in their hearts, they will rid themselves of anger. If dull and foolish beings constantly and reverently hold Guan Yin Bodhisattva in their hearts, they will leave ignorance behind. Infinite resolve. Guan Yin Bodhisattva vastly benefits living beings with her sublime spiritual powers. Therefore, living beings should always hold her in their hearts. If women seeking sons bow and make offerings to Guan Yin Bodhisattva, they will give birth to sons blessed with virtue and wisdom. Or if they wish for daughters, they will bear upright, beautiful daughters who have planted roots of virtue in previous lives and are loved and honored by all. Infinite resolve, such is the power of Guan Yin Bodhisattva. If living beings pay respects or bow to Guan Yin Bodhisattva, their efforts will certainly result in blessings. Therefore, every living being should uphold the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva. Infinite resolve. Suppose someone were to uphold the names of bodhisattvas as many as the grains of sand in the 62 kotis of the Ganges River, and in addition, were throughout his life to make offerings of food, drink, clothing, bedding, and medicine to all of them. What do you think? Would the merit of that good man or woman be great or not? Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve replied, "Very great indeed, world-honored one." The Buddha said, "Yet if someone else were to uphold the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, bow and make offerings for even a single moment, the blessings of these two people would be exactly the same, and would last for billions of kotis of eons." Infinite resolve, upholding the name of Guan Yin Bodhisattva brings such limitless and boundless merit. Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve addressed the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, how does Guan Yin Bodhisattva roam throughout this Saha world? How does she teach the Dharma to living beings? What kinds of skillful means does she use?" The Buddha said to Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve, "Good man, to living beings in the worlds who can be saved by a Buddha, Guan Yin Bodhisattva appears as a Buddha and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a Pratyeka Buddha, she appears as a Pratyeka Buddha and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a Shravaka, she appears as a Shravaka and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a Brahma, she appears as a Brahma and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by Chakra, she appears as Chakra and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by the God Sovereign Ease, she appears as the God Sovereign Ease and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by the God Great Sovereign Ease, she appears as the God Great Sovereign Ease and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a Mighty Heavenly General, she appears as a Mighty Heavenly General and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by Vaishravana, she appears as Vaishravana and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a minor king, she appears as a minor king and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by an elder, she appears as an elder and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a layman, she appears as a layman and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a state official, she appears as a state official and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a brahmana, she appears as a brahmana and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a bhikshu, bhikshuni, upasaka, or upasika, she appears as a bhikshu, bhikshuni, upasaka, or upasika, and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a female elder, a laywoman, a female state minister, or a brahmani, she appears as that kind of woman and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a young boy or young girl, she appears as a young boy or young girl and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a god, dragon, yaksha, gandharva, ashura, garuda, kimnara, maharaga, human, non-human, or the like, she appears accordingly and teaches them the Dharma. To those who can be saved by a Vajra-wielding god, she appears as a Vajra-wielding god and teaches them the Dharma. Infinite resolve, such are the meritorious deeds Guan Yin Bodhisattva has perfected. Appearing in all kinds of forms, she roams throughout the world to save and liberate living beings. Therefore, you should all wholeheartedly make offerings to Guan Yin Bodhisattva. In times of terror, crisis, and hardship, this Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Guan Yin, can bestow fearlessness. For this reason, throughout the Saha world, we call her the one who bestows fearlessness. Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve addressed the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, I shall now make an offering to Guan Yin Bodhisattva." He then unfastened from around his neck a necklace of precious pearls worth hundreds of thousands of ounces of gold and presented it to the Bodhisattva with these words, "O humane one, please accept this offering of Dharma, a necklace of precious pearls." But Guan Yin Bodhisattva refused to accept it. Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve then said to Guan Yin Bodhisattva, "Humane one, out of compassion for all of us, please accept this necklace." The Buddha then said to Guan Yin Bodhisattva, "You should have compassion for Bodhisattva Infinite Resolve and the Fourfold Assembly, as well as the gods, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, maharagas, humans, non-humans, and others, and accept this necklace." Then, out of compassion for the Fourfold Assembly, as well as the gods, dragons, humans, non-humans, and others, Guan Yin Bodhisattva accepted the necklace. She divided it into two parts. One strand she offered to Shakyamuni Buddha, and the other to the stupa of Buddha Many Treasures. Infinite Resolve, with such effortless spiritual powers, Guan Yin Bodhisattva travels about the Saha world. At that time, Bodhisattva Infinite Resolved asked his questions once again in verse. "World-honored one, whose wondrous hallmarks are complete, I would now inquire about her again. How did this disciple of the Buddha come to be called Guan Yin?" The honored one, replete with wondrous hallmarks, answered Infinite Resolve in verse. "Hear now of the deeds of Guan Yin. Listen to how deftly she responds to every plea. With a vast resolve, as deep as an ocean, she has passed through eons too many to imagine. Having served hundreds of billions of Buddhas, she has made great vows, pure and clear. Let me speak of them to you in brief. Hearing her name or seeing her body, and keeping her constantly in mind, one can put an end to the sorrows of existence. Suppose a person, wanting to cause you harm, pushes you into a blazing pit of fire. Invoke the powers of Guan Yin, that fiery pit will turn into a pool. If you are cast adrift upon an immense ocean and subject to the perils of dragons, fish, and ghosts, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. Amidst the waves and breakers, you will not drown. If you are on the peak of Mount Sumeru and someone pushes you headlong off the edge, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. Like the sun itself, you will remain suspended in mid-air. Suppose you are pursued by evildoers and tumble down the Vajra mountains. Invoke the powers of Guan Yin. They will be unable to harm so much as a single hair. If you are surrounded by a horde of vicious enemies, each wielding a sword and threatening violence, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. Their hearts will immediately turn kind. Suppose you are sentenced by the state, condemned to death, and on the verge of execution. Invoke the powers of Guan Yin. The executioner's sword will instantly shatter into pieces. If you are imprisoned, bound in chains, with hands and feet confined in shackles, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. These bonds will break apart and set you free. Perhaps someone plots to do you bodily harm, with hexes, curses, or poisons. Invoke the powers of Guan Yin. They will all be cast right back at the person. Suppose you encounter evil rakshasas, venomous dragons, or legions of ghosts. Invoke the powers of Guan Yin. None will dare to harm you in the least. If you are encircled by vicious beasts, their sharp fangs and claws causing fear, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. The beasts will quickly scatter in all directions. If you face venomous snakes, lizards and scorpions, spitting poisons and scorching flames, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. They will turn and flee at the sound of her name. When lightning crackles and thunderclouds explode, pelting hail and monsoon rains, invoke the powers of Guan Yin. The hail and rain will immediately disperse. Living beings are trapped and troubled, oppressed by hardships without measure. The power of Guan Yin's wondrous wisdom can help relieve the world's suffering. Endowed with complete spiritual powers and widely versed in knowledge and skillful means, in all lands throughout the 10 directions, there is no kshetra where she does not appear. The agonies in the various lower realms, the hells, ghosts, and animals, and the pains of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the Bodhisattva gradually dispels them all. She who contemplates truly and purely, who contemplates with wisdom vast and great, who contemplates with kindness and compassion, we vow to ever admire and venerate. With pure, clear radiance free of defilement, this wisdom sun dispels the darkness. Quelling disasters, storms, and fires, this universal light shines throughout all worlds. With the body of compassion, morality's thunder, her wondrous cloud of kindness covers all. The sweet dew Dharma rains fall, extinguishing the flames of affliction. In criminal trials and civil suits, or when fear runs high as warring armies near, invoke the power of Guan Yin. All vengeance and enmity disappear. Wondrous sound, Guan Yin, a pure sound, the sound of ocean tides, a sound transcending every worldly sound. We shall keep it forever in our minds. From thought to thought, do not let any doubts arise. Guan Yin, that pure and holy sage, in times of suffering, agony, danger, and death, will be there as our refuge and protector. Replete with all merit and virtue, her kindly eyes behold all living beings. She is a boundless sea of every blessing. Let us bow and offer our respect. Then Bodhisattva, guardian of the earth, rose from his seat. went before the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, if there are those who hear this chapter concerning Guan Yin Bodhisattva, which describes her masterful deeds and how she universally responds with her spiritual powers, you should know that the merit of such people will not be small." When the Buddha taught the Universal Door chapter, 84,000 living beings in the assembly all brought forth the unparalleled resolve for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi.